Let's share this API industry state of the market. It's updated for June 2022, right? Again, my name is Mehdi Medjaoui. You can follow me on Twitter. This is our last publication. Let's say different books. One on continuous API management, published by O'Reilly as the second edition. Also, a European Commission report on API programming interfaces in governments, why, what, and how. And also a research report on GDPR data portability, the forgotten right, explaining a little bit why actually we should have in situ personal data, as Marshall Aslin was sharing earlier. This is what we will talk about. We will talk about the API landscape, right? The 1,100 companies composing the API tooling landscape. Again, we'll try to dive more into that and explain binary numbers, what's happening. You can actually follow it live and watch and use this interactive version on APIscene.io. So I let you some time to read it and go there, apilandscape.apiscene.io. And again, you will be able to see that actually the landscape is composed by 5 main sections. The first one is API lifecycle platforms. That's the first one. The second one is backend building tools, API as a product and business process as a service, right? So really API companies where just APIs are delivering a product directly delivered by an API as an API. The fourth one is integration platform as a service, right? To integrate a lot of APIs in the same time, like big SDKs, and then there is vertical API abstraction and API aggregators, right? So being a single point of integration for many different APIs. Currently, it's the cumulative funding to date over the last 10 years is $174 billion, right? Depending on the different part of the landscape, mostly on the API lifecycle platforms. We've seen
Mehdi, excuse me, but you are not in full screen. In full screen mode. You're not in presentation mode. Can you do this, please?
Is it full screen now?
No, it is not.
Okay, let me go back. StreamYard and okay, so the slide not even moving, right?
No.
Okay, I understand. Maybe it will work now.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry for what happened. So latest publication, different books and research on APIs for European Commission and for data portability. Again, this is the landscape. This is the landscape as you can see it. And as I was saying, you can go on apilandscape.apiscene.io to watch it. Sorry for what happened. And this is the different section I was talking to you about, the lifecycle platforms, backend building, API as a product, integration platform as a service, and vertical API abstractions. As I was saying, it's worth $174 billion, right, on different parts of the landscape, mostly by API lifecycle platforms, which represent $100 billion. But again, there's many acquisitions. So in the calculation, sometimes when there are 2 acquisitions, it counts as a cumulative funding. So we will see exactly why it's there. Also, the number of ecosystem enablers. Again, the business process as a service really engaged by the startup movement, like really represent the more number in the subcategories. Really followed by API lifecycle platforms, backend building tools, and we can see other like integration platform as a service or integration platform as a service for the different numbers. And again, so we'll dive into all these 5 all together, right? What trends and strategic takeaways we see from this API industry landscape, right? So that's extremely important. The first one is that API management has become a commodity leading to new open source growth. Why we're saying that? So market research agencies estimated the value of the API management market at an estimate between around 1.8 billion, with to reach 13 billion by 2028. So that's a compound annual growth rate of 28%, which is quite good. So it seems the API management market is reaching maturity, this plateau of productivity of the life of the hype cycle, but because of a lot of recent consolidation and acquisition, right? So this is the last 10 years acquisition. So you can see almost all the software providers, large software providers or technology providers, have acquired API management solutions, companies and startups. Larger one are Broadcom, but also Google, IBM, Axway, Salesforce, TIBCO, Talent, Oracle, Microsoft, or Perforce, all acquired API management solution directly. So yes, but that led to a lot of open source creation. So we have recent open source companies who raised a lot of money: Gravity, Kong, Nginx, Solo.io, 3Scale, TAC, and WSO2. So WSO2 has been there for a longer time, but yes, because of this commoditization, more and more open source companies are able to take a part of the value because they're leaving the assets but orchestrating the use of the users. So these new open source project has now like a really growing company and trying to get some value that has been captured by previous software vendors because they are now acquired. So the thing is that smaller middle market are not their top priority for these big vendors. So yeah, these new players can actually tackle this middle market. The trend one we've seen on top of that is the explosion of tech regulation. So we've seen tech regulation, especially in the API industry, for example, in the healthcare industry with the HL7 fire or the smart challenge. Yes, so that's really a trend pushed by the regulation where APIs are really at the center of the ecosystem. There is also the GDPR aspect, the data protection aspect, right? Because at the end of 2023, 60 countries will have a GDPR-like regulation covering 2/3 of the population. So this portability right, ability to share data will be actually huge, also pushed by the regulation. There's also the open banking aspect. We will talk it right later, but the open banking aspect in many countries has been pushed by the fact that banks were obliged to open APIs to force innovation in these industries. The thing, because of this regulation, we see industry-specific solutions emerge in banking, government, insurance, and healthcare because of what we just talked about. So in the landscape, you can see some tools dedicated for banking, finance, and insurance backends, or API aggregators. So I invite you to see it in the landscape. A few examples, some company just raised Yaply 50 million or TrueLayer 70 million just for API management for open banking. Of course, there's a regulation obliging to open APIs in banking. So there will be API management for open banking. Some vendor like Axway just tried a new open banking platform in Brazil, where the regulation just came out. Also, some vendor, Gravity, they received accreditation to integrate financial-grade APIs into their solution. So you can see this specialization to find back value for most API management vendors. Funny enough, WSO2 received funding, so an open source management solution leader, received funding from Goldman Sachs to extend their banking finance specific open source feature set. Like a bank is funding an API management solution to do more API tooling for the banking market. I also want to share some initiative like the Open Insurance Initiative. It's like 60 insurers who don't wait for the regulation, but who are preparing to open APIs for that. And then we go to our trend 3, which is API security. That's now a standalone product, where privacy is actually the next differentiation maker. So you're familiar with the DevSecOps approach, where what we call shift left, shield right. So we try to detect security issues early in the development process, and we shield right. So we know we secure, let's say, the infrastructure by having a lot of firewall and gateways and things to be sure that even if a defect has gone through the development process, actually it's still secured and covered. So yeah, but this DevSecOps approach enabled the creation of many tools, and which are now a standalone market. Also, because of COVID, we've seen lots and lots of digital adoption, in many different industries. Because of the last 2 years where we're not able to go in physical stores anymore. And the trend forward that we've seen is that APIs are a new layer of business in tech infrastructure. So again, I will love this quote from the founder and CEO of Twilio. The world is getting broken down into APIs, as every part of the stack of business that eventually a developer might need to build is eventually turning into APIs that developer can use. So it's in the book, Ask Your Developer. We really recommend that book. Twilio is a great API company, but this is really a little bit what we have seen in the supply chain industry. Like, the main role of a car manufacturer is to orchestrate the delivery, the production, the delivery, the manufacturing, and the selling of 100 of suppliers, right? And actually, the goal is to design and assemble and sell, right? Things that are mostly made by other providers. So this is a little bit what we see with APIs. With APIs, actually, the role of an organization is to look for piece of software that then they can integrate into their application production process, mixed with the one they do internally, to reopen one to others, like sell or distribute, to redistribute others for their customers and users. In the landscape, you can see these 374 tools, which are specific emailing, messaging, communication platforms, payments, special AI, machine learning, accounting, audio, video APIs, right? Just as a piece of software that just do one thing that will be orchestrated into something else. You can see the valuation of the top valuation of some companies in that space. Again, because it's like in the car industry, when the car market is small, you cannot live by doing just one piece of the car selling to all car manufacturers. But when the car market is huge with hundreds of millions of cars, actually you can just sell one piece, but because it's distributed and sold to all the cars, which is a huge market, you can actually be a huge company just providing tooling for cars. It's the same for digital infrastructure. As more and more companies invest in digital infrastructure, you can be a company that provide one piece of this big digital infrastructure and to be able to be a large company with that. There is also a new tech stack, like new open standards, like the Open API Initiative specification, the Async API specification, and other like gRPC, JSON Schema, GraphQL, Vulkan, JSON-LD, which are open source standards that actually enable large-scale API production. Also, that's one part why it's really part of digital infrastructure. And again, so if you mix the two, what we have, you have Lego brick economy, where, for example, this is a representation for payment services. Actually, from core banking to card wallet transfer, acquisition of users or acquisition of customers, you can have many pieces, Lego bricks, that you can assemble to build different part of the banking as a service. You can make payment services mixing 3 or 4 elements of the market. You can build huge companies just by mixing some available APIs from what others are doing. And so banks, you can actually completely rebuild the bank with the banking as a service APIs there. So again, this new business stack and open technology stack is enabling this Lego brick economy. The trend number 5 is what we call the low code and the growth of citizen developers. So the business people who are not technical, don't have the technical background, but will be able to build application mixing APIs together. So you can know some platforms like Zapier or Retool or AppSheet, acquired by Google for $2 billion, to show you the strategy. Actually, these platforms enable you to mix APIs together and to do valuable recipes to mixing APIs together. So when you say, when someone tag me on LinkedIn, please send me an email and make a copy into my Dropbox, right? This orchestration of different services can be actually really useful, but it can be also in a business. Look, when someone fill a type form on my website, please put the data on Google Sheet and send me a text message so I can call them directly, right? So this citizen developer application can be business applications will be enabled with this low-code movement that we have identified as trend number 5. So many drivers for this low-code trend. So IT teams are not well enough staffed, so business teams don't want to wait. There are already internal APIs that already exist, so that can expose data and functionality that can be orchestrated into a new workflow. The SaaS tools, right, are now dedicating to mix APIs together, right? And also the customer demand is already there, so we need to deliver faster. And we will see that now we have even some no-code tools, no-code schools, right? Schools to learn to how to no-code, right? So that can be funny even to say. So to sum up this first part before going into the update, yes, so API management is growing fast, but creating new open source communities. Regulation enforcing the publishing and the use of APIs are creating also new opportunities for specialization, which is the third trend. So there is specialization into banking, healthcare, supply chain, and insurance, pushed by regulation. Because of the post-COVID digitization, API security is now a standalone market with pure API security product, right? And so we see some new privacy features, which actually we believe will be a next part of the landscape. APIs are a new type of business infrastructure with a new technical stack based on open source standards. And again, the trend number 5, citizen developers are the next API users and consumers. So let's do the 6-month update since last research, what we have seen. So we have seen that open banking, right, there was has been a big push into what we call API-enabled digital infrastructure, right? So this is the number of, for example, API calls in billions who have been made in open banking. So almost 10 billion in UK, 4.2 in the US, and Brazil just coming with a new regulation. We've seen also the API increasing API traffic. So, for example, the Salt Security report showed that amongst 250 customers, we've seen a growth of 221 annual growth from API traffic, right? The API provider focus is really on industry verticals, right? So a lot of API providers have dedicated page on banking and finance for marketing, right? So we've seen 287 out of 1,100, 166 contain pages for health, 105 for governments, and 558 in total represent these industry verticals. And we've seen also API skills as a top of workforce demand because we've seen 33,000 new jobs advertised in Q2 where API are related in the job offer. So since the last 6 months, we added 118 tool providers since our last publication. So you can see in orange the difference in funding compared to the existing market. So it's kind of significant. We can still a significant growth on the numbers and on the funding. We've seen also a lot of patents. So 59 patents in the US mentioned directly APIs, right? With larger enterprise like IBM, Fujitsu, and Salesforce. We've seen also some lower from smaller companies and startups in the space like Stoplight, who are also registering their innovation in APIs. Few examples about some companies recently added, just to give you a hint. Content Stack, a headless CMS, right? So CMS API powered. TeachLab, an API security company. Again, we're saying API security was a specific layer. And Pinwheel, a data analytics and algorithm platform, right? Just for payroll, right? So just to tell you, yes, payroll is now business as a service that can be integrated directly by an API. So in the total number of investment is like 20 billion total in new investment. And again, we've seen more and more funding in that space, as you can see. But let's say the top funding is really on the API lifecycle platforms or business process as a service. We're really catching up on the space. So this is an example of company who raised at least 100 million, who have a clear API strategy, open API strategy. We've seen Quanto, an open banking application, Software AG, a software vendor, Apollo, a tool doing a platform for GraphQL technologies, Mambu, again, a SaaS platform for banks. So really open banking is really pushing, and you can see the different type of companies, mostly on the vendor side, for specific industries who are raising more than 100 million in the last 6 months. The API industry is an employment powerhouse, adding more than 500,000 jobs to the global market. Again, there are 33,000 open positions, but over the last 6 months, it has been at least 500,000 jobs that has been filled. So we see a lot of movement. A lot of people are moving in that space, and a lot of jobs opportunities are there. Again, this data is obtained via LinkedIn, right? So the employment opportunities, again, is mostly on the API lifecycle platforms, pushed by the API security. So the percentage of growth is almost 300%. So the tooling ecosystem is really thriving in that space. We've seen a lower in the integration platform as a service, because actually they are shifting to API lifecycle platforms. So this is really what we have seen. The number of advertised position is really now on the API lifecycle platforms, where cannibalizing all the space. So it's 5 prediction, and I'll finish for the last 4 minutes we have. So with the prediction we said regulation are impacting. Yes, regulation, we had new regulation updates, the Data Governance Act in Europe, the European Health Data Space also implementing FHIR APIs. In the US, we have an executive direction from the White House to enable bank account switching by API, like the start of open banking. We've seen also the Access Act, for interoperability for API users, for end users by APIs. And in Brazil, we have new open insurance regulation who started, and also data access rights to be introduced. So this privacy regulation aspect is also giving opportunities. We talk about the industry-specific solution, and again, we can continue on healthcare, on finance. We've seen some funding, some vendors, again, launching some new solutions. We can remind the Goldman Sachs investment into an API management solution, direct funding, again. So we can see that the trend is actually confirmed. The other one is the API security. So we can see that the larger API security problems, one of the larger API security problems is the sensitive data exposure, which tells you that privacy is actually becoming also an important concern. So API security and privacy will be a standalone product directly in the industry. The trend 4 is that the new layer of infrastructure. So you can see that some companies have been opening APIs and being huge platforms like Shopify, Salesforce, Adobe, Atlassian, Zoom, and others. And again, so they are part of infrastructure, and opening APIs to also help others to build. So they're really part of, they're a piece of infrastructure of the global value chain. Shopify for CMS for sales, Salesforce for customer relationship management, and others, right? Just to say, 98% of organizations interviewed see APIs are essential to their digital stack. The last one, and we'll be done there, the no-code aspect. So just an example, a few months ago, we celebrated in the US the National No-Code Day, right? So, and some company like Allegria Group, for example, they do no-code bootcamp to learn how to no-code. So now you have code bootcamp to learn how to code, and no-code bootcamp how to no-code, right? Yeah, I don't know how you call them, like no-coder or coder of no-code, I don't know. But some people call them like citizen developers, all right? So non-technical background people, but who are still able to understand how to mix business logic applications to finally build something relevant. Thank you very much for this. Sorry for a technical issue at the beginning. We don't have time for questions. It will be time for the break. But yes, you can visit the landscape on apilandscape.apiscene.io. Right, so let you a few seconds to read the address. And thank you very much. We're going for a break for 20 minutes, and we'll be back on the different tracks we have, the business track on platforms and product strategies, the technical track on the new API stack, and the roundtable and workshops. Thank you very much.